Well, hello and welcome back. I hope that you are safe and well wherever you are, and I hope that in the time since my last one of these videos, life has been treating you kindly. You have been treating you kindly. This is a bit of a summary for you of the energetic themes that I'm noticing that are at play at the moment, the things that are coming up in my client sessions, the things that I'm hearing time and time again in the readings that I'm doing, and also the themes that are coming up in my life, consciously and otherwise, as well as on the biggest stage of the world. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ceryn. I am a medium, a therapist, and a guide, and I work with clients right across the world to try and remind them of the fullness of the power that they carry within them and of the depths of the wisdom that they have access to every single day. My aim is to bring them into a greater sense of alignment with those things, to bring us all into a greater sense of alignment with those things. Because I believe that when that happens, when we live from that place of alignment, we can't help but thrive. And more than that, when we all do it, the whole world can't help but thrive, which is so, so important, always, but never more so than right now. And while every single client session that I do, every single reading that I share, while every one of them is different, has very different little intricacies and different details, so often we see the same themes coming through time and time again. And it's those that I want to share, partly just to remind you that you're not alone. If you're going through any of this stuff, you're not on your own with it. There are a lot of other people going through it too, but also to remind you that, there is a way forward. That none of the things, the themes, the challenges that we face have to be the be all and end all of the world, that we can work with them, work through them, work around them. That even in these challenging, chaotic times, there is possibility, there is opportunity, there is a way of alignment. Now, I am recording this in Aries season, and that feels pretty potent to be talking about some of the things I'm going to mention today, because Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, which means that this whole season is in many ways about new beginnings, about setting intentions, about making new starts, and about, if I'll continue with another analogy, turning over new pages. It's interesting to me that I'm actually recording this the day before Aries new moon. I'm not going to release this out into the world on the same day, so you may well be wondering why I'm even talking about a new moon that's passed. But the thing is that a new moon carries that same energy. And I think one of the blessings of cyclical living, which is something that I am very much a proponent of, is that we recognize that every time we miss a moon, it's okay. Because in 1 month's time, there'll be another opportunity to work with those natural energies to set our intentions and manifest what it is that we're trying to create, all of that stuff. But there is also a challenge, a curse, if you like, of cyclical living. And for me, that is the fact that, I don't know, I get 4 days after a new moon and decide that there's something new I want to create. I kind of think, oh man, now I've got to wait a whole other month for that to happen. Now I've got to wait a whole other month to lean into those natural energies. Now, of course, it's not quite that simple, because we all carry within us that creative energy every single day, all times of the month, of the year, and all of those things. But when our energies, when our intentions align with the intentions and the energies and the themes of nature, that's when it comes a little bit easier to flow with that, and we're almost pushing with the tide rather than against it. Aries season is, by its very nature, very similar energy-wise to that new moon energy. And it's interesting then that a lot of the clients I'm working with at the moment, whether they be new clients who are just starting out on their work with me, and whether they be clients I've worked with for some time who are kind of ready to step into a new stage of their journey, a lot of what we are talking about is goals and intentions, is what we are looking to create, what they are looking to create. And of course, at this time of year in Aries season, that's perfect. We've got that fiery spark, we've got those new beginnings, and we can use that energy to really get it behind our intentions, to really firepower what it is that we're trying to create, to bring into being. And so that's the first thing that I want to remind you of at this time, to focus on what it is that you are looking to create. There are those who will tell you that if you didn't set your New Year's resolutions in January, all gone, all forgotten, it's too late. It's just not true. It's just not true. The truth is that actually the springtime, which despite the snow outside of my window at this moment in time, is exactly the period that we're in here in the Northern Hemisphere, is a perfect time to be setting intentions. And not only that, as we move out of Aries season and towards the end of May move into a place of Taurus season, We also find ourselves in a great place to ground those intentions, to really bring those things into being. Now, there's something quite interesting about this, I think, as a world. Because, as I mentioned last time around, we have spent a lot of the past 2 years kind of hunkered down, hibernating, and not really feeling like we could move forward at all. And then we came out of our lockdowns, out of our shelter in places, and we realised that actually, for all of the hope that we'd carried, for all of the things that we'd had within us, there was a lot that hadn't changed, or a lot that seemed to have changed, if anything, for the worse. So I really want us all to embrace that Aries energy, to just make the small changes. They don't have to be big changes, I'm not asking you to suddenly quit your job, walk away from your marriage and change your life entirely, unless you want to do that and that feels right, and then by all means go for it. You're supported energetically to do that. But what I am inviting you to do is to look at where you can change something, even just something, in order to live in a way that feels more in alignment with you. Maybe that's as simple as changing what you have for breakfast. Maybe it's as simple as taking 10 minutes out every day to stand outside and just breathe. Maybe it's something else entirely, For me, I am really trying at the moment to spend a little bit of time every day doing something creative, even if that's just sitting with a pencil in my hand and doodling. Because I realise that one of my intentions for this year has been to be more creative. And that even in doing the work I do, which is so beautifully liberating, I so often forget to just open myself up to that sense of possibility. And so that's my intention right now. It's the thing that I'm trying to embed within my life. Yours might be something totally different, but I do want to remind you that, again, those changes don't need to be big. We think sometimes, especially at the moment where, certainly here in the UK, we're having this narrative shoved down our throats about how life is getting harder. Life is getting more expensive, it's getting harder, it's going to be more challenging, more tough, blah, 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 blah. It's really upsetting, it's really terrifying, and it can make us feel more and more restricted. But we have to remember that we are never wholly restricted. That external narrative, that those power structures, that all of the stories that we're told, the true ones and those that are something else entirely, what they do not do is control every single second of our lives, every single ounce of our energy. That even when it feels like everything is just really oppressive, there is something. There is some small door that we can open to make a change. And it's those small doors that I want you to think about this month, that I want us all to think about in this coming month. I always remember a teacher that I did a course with talking about how whenever she felt that her life was stuck, she would start writing with a different colour pen. Nothing major, nothing huge, but just that ability to look down at the page she was writing on and go, oh, it looks different, would shift something in her, would remind her that she could make other changes. And this is it. I really want us all to be using this Aries energy, first of all, to start thinking about the big picture, to start thinking about the goals, the intentions, what it is that we want to create. Perhaps if you're like me, Danielle Laporte's core desired feelings is something that I love to work with. Maybe even that. But also on a smaller scale, just to use that little amount of firepower, just to spur us into the action of doing something differently. It's a real liberating force, I think. And that liberation is something that's important, because what we're trying to do here, what we are all, many of us, trying to do, is not only step into a place of greater alignment for and within ourselves, but to do that as a species, to do that as a world. And we're going to need to make changes for that to happen. We're going to need to remember that we can think outside of the box, that we can act outside of the box, that we can be something different. I've had numerous opportunities in the last week or two to just do something different. And I'm not talking about major things. I'm not talking about relocating or, I don't know, something huge. I'm just talking about those patterns of behaviour that I would normally fall into, that feel safe, that feel comfortable. I've been confronted with them again and asked this time, do you really want to stay with the safe? Do you really want to do what you've always done? Or do you want to do something different? Now, I don't mind sharing with you that one of those particular patterns earlier this week had me in a place where I was literally shaking. It triggered some real old trauma stuff that I thought I'd dealt with and left me shaking for about an hour afterwards. It was hard, it was tough, but actually the response to that, the way it then played out because I made a change, has been more liberating than I could possibly have understood, have dreamed of. It's opened up doors that I didn't think were ever going to be opened. And it's left me in a place of going, okay, so what if I was to do more of this? Because, you know, I talk about this. It doesn't necessarily mean I've got it cracked all the time. None of us have. I channeled something recently in the Project Earthwork meditation for March, which if you haven't watched a Project Earthwork meditation, I can't advise it enough. I'm part of an incredible group of souls who work on this project to support the Earth's energetic grids and to support the Earth's energy healing. We talk about connection and how connection is the thing that will help us to progress. The connection is the thing that will help us to heal. And that's what Project Earthwork is all about. And anyway, in our last month's meditation, a channeling that came through via me talked about the changes that will come when the divine feminine and the divine masculine meet in the sky. Now, initially I got a bit confused with this because I know that Venus, who is generally considered to be the planetary embodiment of the goddess, and Mars, generally considered to be the planetary embodiment of the divine masculine, they came together in the sky much, much earlier in the year, and I was a bit confused by that, if I'm honest. But here's what a very wise astrologer friend realised for me, was that later this month, again, April, so next month as I'm recording this, but this month as you hear, I believe it's the 27th of April, Venus will once again come into a place of conjunction, this time with Neptune. Now, Neptune we know of as the god of the oceans. We know of as a god of the water. What is water? It's emotion, it's depths, it's reflection. They are not traditionally things that we associate with the divine masculine as we have been sold it in the modern world, but that doesn't mean that they're not things that the divine masculine embodies, as Neptune shows us. So when Venus comes into conjunction with Neptune later this month, when those two forces, that divine feminine and that divine masculine, come together in the skies, they offer us a new way forward. I firmly believe that they open up the doorway to something new, to a new way of recognizing the divine feminine, to a new way of recognizing the divine masculine, to a new way of embodying those principles. Call them lunar and solar, divine masculine, divine feminine, yin and yang, whatever you want to call them. Embracing them within ourselves, within our lives, within the world. Now, I find this really interesting, of course, because I've written a book called The Divine Feminist. This is what I'm all about. But I find it especially interesting because recently I've been researching the Greek goddess of wisdom, Metis. And it's said that Metis, as part of her story, she was a wife of Zeus. Now, Zeus learned that she was due to give birth to 2 children. Please forgive these old, very antiquated ideas of what a man and a woman would be. But one would be a daughter who was as strong and as courageous as any man and was the greatest warrior that the earth could imagine. And one was a son who contained within him the compassion and the depth of heart wisdom that any woman would be proud to call her own. Now, Zeus was all right with this idea until he learned that the son would overthrow his father and would become the greatest power there ever was, because what is more powerful, according to the ancient Greeks, than a heart-led god, than one who balances both that divine masculine and that divine feminine energy within them? And so, of course, Zeus did the only common thing that he could do. He made his wife turn into a fly and swallowed her so that he could keep her imprisoned within him forever. Yeah. Now, nonetheless, Metis went on to give birth to Athena, or to create Athena, who Zeus then birthed out of his head. It's a very long and contrived story that I encourage you to read up on, but Athena was, of course, the warrior goddess. She was brave, she was courageous, she was powerful. Metis never gave birth to the son that was promised, the son that it was said would take over from Zeus, would take over from that patriarchal force and create an energy, create a power dynamic that was much more balanced. But what if that's what's coming now? What if, as the masculine and feminine, as we know them in the stars, come together in a new way? It opens the door to us, each and every one of us, and all of us collectively, to rethink those two energies within us, to rethink what represents that yin energy within us, what represents that yang energy within us. how we want to personify that, to embody that, to carry it forward in every aspect of our being and every aspect of our lives. It might sound a little bit weird, it might sound a little bit overwhelming, to be honest, but I really encourage you to sit with that in the coming weeks, to consider those yin and those yang energies within you, within your life, to look at where you can find those places of balance, where you can find those places of truth as they are for you and within you. And to remember that these new beginnings that we're creating right now, they don't necessarily have to be based on the templates we've had before. They don't necessarily have to be based on what we thought was fact. We get to sit there and we get to work with our own definition of truth, with the truth of our hearts and the truth of our souls. And we get to move forward from a place of that alignment with ourselves. Because when we do that, and sometimes it can be the hardest thing to do in a world that tells us it's not possible, but when we do that, we open the doors. We start to inspire other people to do the same thing, to find their own sense of truth, to find their own sense of rebalancing, and bit by bit, like dominoes, that spreads out across the whole world. That's how we change the world, by coming into greater alignment with ourselves. We encourage other people to come into greater alignment with their truth, with their power, with their wisdom. And so if I could ask anything of you with these intentions that I'm encouraging you to set for the month ahead, for the year ahead, for the next chapter, however long it will be, it would be exactly that. To remember that what you're doing here, what you're doing within your heart, within your soul, within your life, it has the opportunity to change things up for you for the better. But it also has the opportunity to change things up for everybody, bit by bit, as you inspire other people to do the same. I think I've talked for long enough now, so I'm going to leave it there. But I wish you a wonderful April. I wish, again, that you may stay safe and well. And I invite you always to remember just how much power, wisdom and beauty you hold within you, even if and when the world has told you the opposite. Thank you so much for listening, and take care.